I'm Matt Lehman, and I'm going to be working on some AI stuff tonight. It's been a while since I've streamed, but good to be back in the seat with y'all. So I've got a project that I want to work on. I've been poking around with it, trying to learn LangGraph, and I have a flow in mind that I want to do. Got some steps here that I think I should be able to actually display with a little bit of effort. Let's see, UV run. I've already got the environment set up, so I think this should work. This will start up a little local web server. And I'm not using LangSmith officially. I don't have an account there, but here's my flow. The intent is to make something that will, in the long run, fetch some posts of mine from mine X account. From a particular playlist. They're not called playlists. They're what are they called? Just a list, I think. Yeah, just a list that has a bunch of developer accounts that I want to follow, and get those, go through them, and look for relevant topics, and then generate some possible posts. I've got a human in the loop pattern that I want to apply here, so we'll hopefully cover some of that. Human in the loop is the name of the technique for like doing interrupts and having a person approve something, because I don't want to just be putting out like trash on the internet. I want to have, I'm hoping to have like some generated tweets that are interesting and engaging, but I want to have some editorial review, and put myself in the middle of that. So because if it's going to go out on my account, I want it to be representative of the kind of things I want to say. And I hope to make it look like the things I'd want to say by kind of teaching it my style in the system prompt. So that's the flow. We would fetch some data, and we'd look through that, and we'd have an LLM make some possible posts that are representative of me, and could be valid replies. Then we would have this approval step that would come out to me in a way that I've had in mind. And then if this gets resumed at some point, it would go to the next step in this process, which would be the publication of that post to the X API. So, Jeffrey, welcome. So the plan is to flesh out some of these steps. Can we incorporate? I don't know. We might need to, Jeffrey. Like, there's an aspect of this that I'm trying to, that I haven't figured out yet for this project. So I've been thinking about this flow of like, how do I get from the approval step to the actual publication step? There's this human in the loop aspect to this, and with LangGraph, the way it works is essentially you call an interrupt method that's, you can see from there, LangGraph types, and what that will do is it essentially pauses the workflow at that point in time and just like keeps track of it. The way that works is there's, with these LangGraph flows, there's something called a check pointer, and the check pointer is essentially some like a memory, like a little database of here's everything that happened in these flows, in these flow steps, and between steps, it can save off that checkpoint, and let it be resumable at a different point in time. I can get some of the mechanics of how that would work in the future in a bit. So if that's a step where I interrupt, then there's like a way to resume, and the way to resume is to send a particular kind of command back to the flow. Like you call an invocation command, and the thing that you seed it with is sorry, I said command twice. You call this invoke method on the graph, and then you give it a command, which then takes the data back. And so the command needs the identifier that says like which workflow do we need to resume, and all of that. So what resources have I been using? I've been using two. One is LangGraph Academy, which is from the LangGraph company. I've been going through some of their LangGraph course. I think it's this one. Nope, this one, Foundation Introduction to LangGraph. So nothing crazy there. And then for the actual, like, how am I learning LangGraph, I've been going through the documentation. Yes, any relation to, so LangChain is like a set of primitives that, so if you can think about like a hierarchy, LangGraph has helped you make your flow for your agent workflow, but the actual tools that you'll use to work with LLMs and invoke them and stuff, that comes from LangGraph, or sorry, LangChain, excuse me. So here you can see in this basic flow that I have so far, we've got LangGraph represented for doing the agent kind of stuff, like the saving of memory that I was talking about, and the different, I can explain more of these other things later. And then the actual, like, how do you talk to a chat model, LLM, all that sort of stuff. Yep, so same company. No problem. Okay, so how was I thinking about doing this? The trick here, so there is a product. So what LangGraph, the company, or LangChain, the company, I don't actually know their company name. Hold on a second. LangChain Inc. What they would love for you to do is use their LangChain platform, LangGraph platform. I don't know, it gets a little confusing. There's a platform thing that you can sign up for, and it's where they will essentially run your workflows on their infrastructure. So you could deploy there. I am not going to be paying, I don't have the money to like pay LangGraph to do that, or LangChain to do that. Man, that is a really confusing thing to speak about and be consistent on. So the open source tools that we're using, LangGraph and LangChain, the technologies are freely available, but where the company seeks to make money is the making it easy to run those things without you having to do some stuff. So for example, I have a desire to run this workflow on a daily cadence. There's no like out of the box cron tool. So I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that myself. Additionally, with the human in the loop stuff, I haven't actually read their documentation on it yet, but I think that they have mechanisms to enable that, and I'm not sure how to do that here. So maybe I can get some like architecture of this thing, because let's talk. So I had Mermaid up before we get here. So what is the flow that we want to go over? And do I want to even bother with Mermaid? Might be just, let's maybe use Eggscaladraw. Less thinking. Eggscaladraw. Okay. Ah, sad. Journal's gone. Okay, it's okay. How do we reset? Where is it? Where's my brain? There, reset. Okay. All right, so I want to have a workflow. So we would have a workflow, right? The workflow has those steps that we saw, and we know that at some point there is an interrupt step where we will essentially, like, if I was to draw it, there's like a line here kind of halfway through the process where it's like, nope, stop. And let's move it a little bit so we can still see workflow. So this will be our little interrupt line. And interrupt. What? Come on. Thought I double clicked the middle of that line. Nope. Nope. What the heck? Why is it not letting me put a label on this line? All right, whatever. Doesn't matter. Interrupt. So we'd have that interrupt that happens. And this is where we need some mechanism to like actually notify me. And so the question is, what mechanism was I going to use to actually get that notification? Because my plan and I don't know if this is probably a bad plan, but I'm trying to keep this without like minimal cost. I don't want to actually like spin up a bunch of cloud infrastructure. So my intent is to maybe use this Mac Mini and just like let it be on and let it run periodically. And if I have more agents in the future, they could run them. So I'm building up a little bit of an ecosystem here. I created a repository that will hold workflows and stuff, and that's where that will come. So we're at that interrupt stage. Now what? So we said the interrupt would need to seek approval. And what am I planning to put in that approval? There is a cool tool, ntfy. This is what I'm hoping to use, ntfy.sh. And ntfy.sh is like really interesting in the sense that it makes it possible to get phone notifications just by a curl post. Like we could do this right now. Let's see. Let's demo it for giggles. Let's go to the docs. And we want to do sending messages. So I have a program on this phone already. It hooks up to like the notification stuff. So it's kind of listening for that. So it's maybe really hard to see. That little green one right there is notify. And what you can do is you can create like a topic. Now, this is public, so these topics that you could be accessed by anybody, but I have some ideas of getting around that by using some UUIDs on what the topic name would be. But what's hard to see here, I don't know that you can see that at all because it won't focus. There is a topic called MBL, which is my initials, -testing is the name of the topic. So you can see what they've done is a little curl command to that topic. So if we go over to, oh man, it's been so long since I've used my stuff that I don't remember all my shortcuts anymore. That's embarrassing. Okay, there we go. So let's stop the LangGraph server. And if we paste in this thing, and instead of my topic, we do MBL-testing, it's going to say the nonsensical backup successful. I heard a buzz over here. And but you can see at least you see that there's an emoji, right? Like, so there is a way to notify about what would these potential posts be. So my thought is make a notification that is just long enough to include, and at this point I'm thinking like three possible posts. Now there's a reason for that, and list them 1, 2, 3. And what else you can do with these is you can set these actions. So the actions are the ability to go to a web page, which is not what we want, but we want to do an HTTP thing here. So if I do a clever like HTTP get, or it might be a post, I don't remember, I need to look it up, back to a different notify topic, then I can use that to like a signaling mechanism between my workflows. So coming back to Excalidraw, we've got, let's see, let's put an arrow here to like notify sh. This would be much better with a sequence diagram, but whatever. And notify sh is going to then go to my phone. We'll do, let's see. This will be Matt's phone. And then we would do another one of these guys over here. So I would, in the actions, it's just like when you have your own phone, and there's little buttons you can press on, like on your different notifications that you get. That's what these literal actions are, which is super cool. So each one of those actions would correspond to one of the posts that I want to do. So I'd send that data, I'd click the button, which would send back to a topic. Now here's where I'm gonna I haven't figured this out yet. I want to have this, whoops. I want this to be my Python process. Let's put this here. Say Python process. I don't want to have multiple processes. I guess I could, but I don't want to. So let's put that at the top. Doop-a-doop. Okay. So we have this problem of like, if I started the process here and I did this interrupt in the workflow, what I've learned from the LangGraph documentation is that the workflow will return, and it will return a partial result, or effectively some kind of future, saying like, we're not done, but I don't have anything to do right now because I'm waiting for a human being, and I'm not just going to sit here in a loop. So it will stop before it can continue. So one thought I've had is, oh man, I'm going to have to send that to the back, otherwise it's going to get really annoying. Send to back. Okay. So one thought I've had is we could potentially, like in the same process, we could do this. And we switch from having like being in the LangGraph universe to setting up some kind of listener, like a ntfy.sh listener, and subscribe to the topic that I send out in those notifications, like when it's coming over here. So I guess this would actually, let's a little bit more specific. So this could be, I don't know, I'm going to make up a name. It's not going to be a real name that I would use because that's very public, but possible X posts. And this topic would be selected X post, something like that. And it would just be a number. I would just be like 1, 2, or 3. This thing would include the whole message. Okay. So the listener, we would want it to listen to that topic, waiting for a response. Right. And then once it gets the response, it could stop listening and send the command that restarts the workflow. So yeah, kind of, yeah, there'd be, essentially you can think arrows between these things, right? I'm not going to draw them. It's just going to get too cluttered. And this thing is the thing that would actually do the sending to X, right? The last steps. All right, so there's aspects of this that are nice and simple, but I don't know that I like it. It's a very manual construction. Because ideally, like, I want to have some kind of runner that is just configured to like run agent jobs that get sent to it, and have that be, if you could think of, all right, alternate reality. So this is option, we'd call that like option A. Let's put it here. Option A. All right. So another option, another universe for this is we take all of this stuff, and in the same Python process, I'm going to simplify some of this. We somehow like have these things going in parallel, which I'm not sure the best way to do that yet, but this could be like a runner that is ready to like listen for things, and this could be a persistent listener. And the persistent listener could listen for whatever comes in on that topic. And I would need to find a way to say, here's the listener would kind of be listening for what workflow are you resuming, and then what data are you sending to it. I don't know that I have, at this stage, I don't know that I want to do this. It feels more complicated for what I want. So I'm going to attempt to do this kind of flow, knowing that this is the behavior I'm setting up, and knowing that I'm only running a single workflow. And then I would wrap this whole thing probably in literally a simple cron job that could run daily. So that's the current plan. There's some unknowns in this that I need to verify. One of those unknowns is this listener. Like, this app, I think, is polling, I assume. Like, I don't know how it would be receiving signal otherwise. So I want to figure out how to notify SH, like when I subscribe to that topic with a library or some Python code, what does that look like? Do I need to sit it in some busy loop? Do I need to start up some little web server and set up a webhook? I don't really know. So all of that stuff would have to safely spin up, be listening on that topic, waiting for a response, and then there's only 3 actions, but I want to have it so, like, AIs can be awful, right? They can produce really garbage results, and I'm sure there would be days where of the 3 possible posts that I would want, they're all trash, and I don't want to post any of them because they'd be embarrassing to put out on the internet. In that universe, I want there to be like a timeout on the listener, and if I just don't respond, if I just swipe it away, then after a period of time, it would just say, oh, I guess he didn't want to do anything. Because the reason for that is down to when you get down to the actions, where does it say? Sky is not the limit. We'll see. Because it tells you, that doesn't matter. It tells you you can only have 3 actions is what it comes down to. So the max I could do, short, unless I sent multiple notifications, which is a possibility but might get annoying, is to pick 3 actions. So that's where I'm at. It's a bit of a kind of Rube Goldberg machine here. A little bit convoluted, not gonna lie, but I think it'll do what I wanted to do. It's saying there's something to save here. What's going on? Okay, don't know what that was about. So what step do I want to take on then, I guess, is the piece of this. I was messing with so there's another constraint here. I discovered, like, I blew through the X API is now very expensive to query data for, which makes sense. They're trying to protect. They don't want people, in the age of AI, they don't want people just like slurping up all their content and training their own LLM on it. I get it. So I can only pull 100 posts per month, and that's very small, very, very small amount. So I don't really want to focus on the fetching so much. I think initially I could make a prompt that would be like, hey, here's something that is free from context, but I give it a system prompt of like, write me something about Python. Don't make jokes, they're bad. Write me something interesting about something current that's happening, that kind of stuff. For the time being, we don't need any of that though. We could just simulate calling the LLM and focusing on, like, if this flow is going to work at all, I've got to figure out the human in the loop aspect. I've got to figure out the ability to resume this. So let's go over to this run file is where I've got this configured to actually run the actual graph. You can see I was messing around trying to get the authorization working on my X client. This is the tweepy client that allows you to do get stuff from X. And then this is the particular dev list that I have. It's a private list, I think, but like that's where I would be pulling from. So I know that this stuff works, and I just commented it out because I was feeling lazy. This is my own private repository, so I don't care about like having some pristine code here. But what does this look like? Okay, let's try invoking the graph so you all can see how this goes and get a feel for this flow. You can see I've got some print statements in each of the flows. So if I run this, go over here and run make, which is running my flow, you can see it just runs through each of these steps. That's configured. At the bottom here, the way LangGraph works is you take, all right, I guess I should briefly walk through LangGraph fundamentals here. There is a concept of state that you pass from node to node. So in LangGraph, you build nodes, you connect them with edges. These are popular computer science graph terms. And then you wire everything together in a bunch of different sequences. So Saravana, hopefully I'm trying to explain it here, so hopefully this will make sense. So this will be an agent. This is the agent each of these nodes, the node itself is a function, and each of these functions will receive the state as an input that can be used. LangGraph is from the same company as LangChain. It is a layer on top of LangChain to make agent interfaces. So you have a bunch of these nodes. They get passed from one to the other as however you configure it. So you make the nodes kind of independently. You make some edges independently. If there's an ability to have a conditional edge. And then at the bottom, you kind of wire everything together. Now, if you go read the LangGraph documentation, this is called the Graph API. There is another API that is referred to as the functional API. Oh, keep me honest here. Let's go. Yeah, the functional API feels much more like a workflow where you've got like, this is your entry point thing and you write these different tasks, but ultimately both of these APIs boil down to a graph that LangGraph is able to run. And they've got some details here in this runtime section about how that is. It is backed by a Google white paper on Pregel. Now we're getting way in the deep end, not going to go any further than that, but that's what these things are running. So the way that works is you take this state graph thing, which is essentially what I've seen in the docs. They keep calling they can't pick a name that makes sense. I've seen state graph, I've seen workflow, I've seen builder, whatever. I think builder has been the closest name that resonates right now, because what you can see is on these builder things, you add the particular nodes and edges. So this particular method here, sequence, is a way of saying, like, I have a bunch of linear nodes and I just want to wire them from, A to B to C to D kind of thing. So just give me a list and do that linear wiring. And then you have to use, there are two important things that you have to indicate where the start and the end of your graph is. Those are constants that come in from here, from the Graph API. It's literally a string that are important. And you say, here's where my start and my end. There's also, I think there's a way to do graph builder set start or something like that. Set entry point. If you don't want to use start, you can use that. Jeffrey, the Django content. I guess I haven't had an app that I've wanted to build with Django for a long time. And I've been using a lot of other tech at work. I still have a very fond feeling for Django. I just don't know what I'd build right now. So maybe I will get back to the homeschool app, but even that, I'm like, it's fine. My customers are happy. So I don't know. Okay, so you build up this graph thing, and then when you're finally done, you give it this compile thing. And so the builder, that's why they call it a build, like, well, why I've seen variables that call it a builder, because the point is to make a graph instance. This is the thing that's runnable. You can see it's called a compiled state graph, and this is what you can invoke. There's another one called stream, which actually we'll probably switch to here in a minute, because it can do some pretty printing of some stuff that I think we want. So what? So in this compilation step, you provide the check pointer. The check pointer is the memory that allows you to like have a resumable thing. Without this, it's not. This is a critical element to making this work. The other thing that's not part of here is we need to provide a particular kind of identifier that will allow something to be resumed. This will make sense more in a minute. So that's the fundamentals of what's going on. We build a graph, we run it, it goes through each node. My nodes are doing nothing, literally nothing more than a print. You may be asking, what the heck is going, why am I returning a dictionary? What's that doing? The state itself is a type-defined dictionary, typed dict. It's only got one key on it, which is messages, which is something that we would pass to the LLM to actually. That's where what provides the context to the LLM to have your history. So it's a very common thing to include for a lot of these agent flows, and how you'd add more and get more specificity. And when you actually return, whatever's in this return dictionary is a set of updates that get applied to the state dictionary. So if you had, if I had like foo as an integer here and fetch recent posts, got an answer for foo, and I'd put foo as 42, then when I get down here, state of foo would be then populated with 42, right? Nothing, there's no rocket science with that part. That's what's going on. So let's get rid of those because I don't actually want a foo variable. So I think what I want to do, I want to get a scaffolding working that we've already seen it invoke. I need to put enough of the little bits that'll make it resumable in a sequence that'll make sense. That sentence did not make sense, so sorry. But there's a bunch of pieces that need to go beyond this invoke stuff. So trying to think of the structure, if I should just go pull from the guide documentation, or if I should try and reason it out here. It'd probably just be faster to go through a get started thing, because there's the certain invocation of this. So hold on a second. Oh boy. Is this going to be faster? Is a real question now. There it is. This is what I was looking for. Okay. So when you start the stream, you can do an invoke, which is like a blocking call, or you can do a stream call. And one of the cool things about LangGraph is that it's meant to be like interruptible and have chunks. So if you want to be able to inspect intermediate state, you can have it, you can stream instead and look at each of these individual things. So what we want to do here is pass, what do we want to do? We've got, I don't know, let's make this simple. Hello world. So this role will create a user message. There are multiple message types, and I think that's all we need for this bit. What are you complaining about? It doesn't know what my state is. Okay, I could make an actual state thing. I don't feel like it. Let's see what happens if I just run this. I'm curious. Oh. it had none. Why? Why would it have none? There is a type. We just provided. Huh. Okay. Let's back it up. What is value? Oh. I think all of my values are... No? Hold on. Find out. None. What? Okay, that did not make sense to me. What's in event? What is the event? For that matter, what is the type of the event? I don't know. Let's explore it together. I'm sure I learned some about this, but I forget. And sometimes it's just faster to like print some crap out and see what it does. All right. So the event is a dictionary that has the state name. Where's our messages? What? Okay, I did something more complex, I promise. And there was like a pretty print. It's a bunch of stuff that pretty, not pretty print. Building. Gotta get. No, that's the functional one. I don't want to do that. Here's kind of the example for the Graph API. Let's find stream on this page. Why is it? You guys stink. Like, not going. It doesn't know how to go to the spot. There we go. Okay, for each of these is a step. So here's their example. Oh, that's a more complicated example. I think I went up too far. Let's go. Let's see if it wraps back around now. What is it going on? Why won't it take me to that spot? Thank you. Is that really the only stream call? Hold on. Okay. Yeah, that must be the only... What the heck? Why is it buried down here? Whatever. So, they have a graph. They call stream on it. They're calling those steps. I'm down with that. That makes more sense. What I don't understand is where did my pretty print get? Like, there was an example that I worked through that had a pretty print. And I'm bothered that I can't find it anymore. I think it was in the Get Started section, building a custom workflow, something farther. Like, let's go down to the human in the loop part. Because they show you, okay, so they got a bunch of stream stuff. You need to pass in the method, and maybe we need to pass in, oh, it could be we were missing the stream mode. Can't remember anymore. So let's try updating some stuff here. So we need a config. This is where we get the resumable bit. So the config is a dictionary. It's called a runnable config or something like that, and it takes a configurable. Don't ask me why. So sometimes you just don't question the structure of things. And it's going to need a thread ID. Now this is the identifier that allows us to like resume a particular workflow. Without this identifier, you're kind of dead in the water. So we'll have to figure out how to pass that thread ID to our notify command and how to get it back. Without that, none of this flow is going to work. So this is the thing I'm trying to prove out. So we need a thread ID. The easiest thread ID that we can use it needs to be some kind of string or something serializable. So I'm going to say that the thread ID is a string of UUID 4. That's a very common UUID types. If you've encountered UUIDs before, that's the type that you probably have seen. So the next part that we need here is, okay, fine. I'm going to rename these things because that's going to annoy me if I'm seeing all these errors everywhere. Get out of here. Is that, and then the config is the second part of what goes into this stream call. So we want to put in config right here. So now it's saying, like, now our workflow is like an identified workflow. What is it complaining about? Man, my type checker is really annoying with this stuff. We also may need the stream mode, and I think I want to go back and figure out, or actually let's just go to the definition here and see if it tells us the stream mode options. Stream mode. There was an explanation like on the documentation, of course. Okay, here we go. Values. Emit all values in the state after each step, including interrupts. Updates. Messages. Okay. So let's try giving it that stream mode and see if that's what we want. So stream mode equal values. All right. And let's try running again and see if we get different if those steps then become something different. Yeah, there we go. So we've given it the stream mode. The chunks that are coming out of the stream are different from what they were before. And you can see that we have in that we have a human message, which is there. And with any of the messages, okay, I still want to step through, like, there's something. So we've got the values. It's a dictionary with messages, which is our state dictionary. That's that's the thing we have over here, right? So the state dictionary has got the state of the messages. So it's not really step anymore. It's not really event. What would we call this? Like, it's the state, right? Or was it? Why did it only do it once, too? That's kind of weird. What? I would have expected we would have multiple steps, but maybe it's only when you have updates. I don't know. I'm getting a little lost. So let's comment this out for a moment, just have that pass, because I'm losing the forest from the trees. So the human message, the list. Oh, I'm being dumb. It's just a dictionary, Matt. So this is literally just the dictionary values of what was in that state. So if we called this like state, this would suddenly make way more sense to me. Okay, I should rename here state. Okay, so now we've got state, and then this is what was the value side of the messages, and we should be able to do something like for, well, we don't know which one was the message. Okay, so we don't want this construction because that's going through everything in the state. Instead, we can do for message in state messages message pretty print, which is a method that's on these messages, which we know is what will be in there. Okay, so here's what I was trying to get to. If you have other kinds of messages, that is what you'd see is these contexts. This is what would be sent around. Okay, I wanted to get to all that because I want to be able to, when we interrupt, we'll see that this graph stream call will stop. I think we'll see that. Although we might need to go back. What were the options again? Emit an event when a checkpoint is created. Emit events when tasks start and finish. Might be interesting to just like print out the different kinds of things. Emit LLM messages token by token. Wow. Updates or values. Emit all values in the state after each step, including interrupts. So values is going to be the most robust, I guess, which is what we have here. Okay. All right, let's try and put an interrupt in there. So the interrupt is going to go at the approve post step. Essentially, the flow of this will be, we will do HTTP post, I think it's post, to notify SH of like, hey, here's the data. And then right here is where we do the interrupt of some kind. And it takes interrupt the graph with a resumable exception from within a node. All right, let's go back to the documentation over here since we're already in the human in the loop section and look for interrupt. Interrupt. So you can pass it a dictionary. I don't know. Oh, that's going to come back in the state. And eventually we'll get a human response. So you have to imagine in your head, like there is between this the left-hand side and the right-hand side, time has passed, perhaps days. Like you don't know. So this is what was going out, and then LangGraph can do whatever it wants with that data. I guess that's going to show up as a step. And eventually this will be what comes back in when we resume this from a command. This will make more sense in a second. So, yeah, my nose is really itchy, sorry. So we want to do like a dictionary of, we'll say posts. That doesn't really matter, probably. Well, it might matter. No, it shouldn't matter because this data, we're going out to the network at the line above it. So what's coming out of here is pretty much useless. I guess we need to give it something. Let's put it in there. My fake post. Yeah, that's total garbage, but whoops. Gotta finish the dictionary. And then we'll say response as the other side of this. I want to eventually print out the response because I think if I got it right, it should be like when we resume this thing, we're going to give it like the number that was selected. That'll be the way this happens. So now with an interrupt in here, I'm hoping that we will, as one of these steps that it prints out, well, that's going to be just messages. We know that this is a dictionary of stuff. I think one of these things should be the actual interrupt itself as one of the types of events. So it shouldn't just be state anymore. It really should be like anything. So let's print out, let's do like, treat it like a regular dictionary or just print the whole thing. What am I talking about? That's crazy. Print, we already have a print of that. So we should see a bunch of stuff come out with this. And let's print a little separator, I guess. Print, just so we have some idea of if there are multiple states. Well, that's not what I expected. I don't know why. Because we have fetch recent posts right here. Generate posts. Oh. This is okay. Some of this makes sense. Like the fact that we don't see, like notice, oh, okay. Observe this. If we take this out for a moment and run it here, now we get all 4 states. So it kind of proves that calling the interrupt stopped the whole sequence of things that are flowing. What I don't get is why the stream is only showing like 1 state. That doesn't make much sense to me. I feel like that should show more things. What is this? Yeah. Forgot my command to invoke my, what am I trying to say? There's a way that I can get like help on what my LSP can do, and it's not rename. Wow, it's been a long time since I've done a significant amount of coding, it seems. LSP. Why is my brain blanking out on that command? There's a sequence that will allow me to bring up, what are those things called? When your LSP can give you options for how to fix errors. Embarrassing. Okay. I'm gonna quickly poke around in here until I remember what it is, or remember reminded. Go to definition. Go to jump. Code action. CA. Okay. There we go. What? Why did you not? Give me the option to bring this in. So dumb. All right. What was it, like LangGraph types? Types. Import. Interrupt. Yep. I did it twice. Jerks. Okay. So, values. I want to see what these, see if we can find the definition for stream mode here. Stream mode. Stream mode. You guys are failing. Updates. Let's try updates. If it's, see how it's different from values. Just poke around with stuff. That's what I mean. That's the whole point of this stream tonight, is to like work on this and see stuff. Okay, cool. So now we're getting what's in each update. So the update was no state in fetch recent posts. I wonder if we put in, let's try putting in something on one of these things, see if there is like state that we can see. If we said foo 42. Is that going to work? No. Okay. All right. Still like a little mystified by what these things are telling us. What does an update mean? So it runs the node, and then that node returns because we're running in the stream, and that's when we print out this stuff. And then it runs the next node, and it prints out this stuff. And then it runs the next node and it prints out this stuff. This one is an interrupt, which is saying, so that's when this stream call, the for loop ends after this. Once we've hit the interrupt, stream says there's nothing left to run. Okay. So the other half of this is we need to provide, all right, now let's simulate, like we would have our notify listener here, like waiting for the response, right? What happens when we get it? When we get it, we want to essentially invoke this stuff again. The difference being what we put in here is going to, like the input is different. Input becomes like a command which tells you to run a certain thing. And we will see that when we get to this human in loop. There's going to be a command somewhere. Why is this? There we go. Here's how you resume execution. To resume, you pass a command containing the data expected. Okay, but we want like a human in the loop command. I think we need to pass, did it pass the config too? Ah, all right, so you have to pass the config as well. So the command resume is the important element. So if we do the command is equal to command and what goes in it, we want it to have a resume dictionary. And we'll say, well, I guess we're now, does it have to be a dictionary? Hold on. Any type? Oh, you can be any type. So we could say that what we pass to the command, like we could have our listener literally just pass the identifier or the number that was selected. If we've got a fake post and it was post number 1, we pass in 1. And then here we could replace all of that with command. All right. Now, we would do the same trick, and because we have a checkpointer, and because we provided a thread ID, those two things in combination, along with this resume command, I guess there are 3 things. There's the checkpointer, which is like the memory aspect of this. There's the identifier, which is the thread ID, and then there's the actual instruction, resume this thing, are enough to restart that workflow again. So it shouldn't be something new. So actually, let's change the little separators so we can see them, just in case it's not obvious. We'll do single dash lines instead of double. And let's see how this goes. So this should work. And if all goes according to plan, we should see this carry on from this line, print response. In fact, let's say response was, just so we very clearly see that approve post resumed before we went to publish post. And then we should see publish post go. So we could see the whole thing in sequence, and we're kind of synthesizing what happens when we continue that workflow. Oh. Cannot use command without a checkpointer. Whoops. Did I not have a checkpointer? I don't. Okay. Fine, fine, fine. So, wait. Oh, yes. So, all right. When I run these with LangGraph dev, they want to use their own checkpointer. And so I've got this like environment variable that is saying use a checkpointer and like using the memory saver checkpointer. So that's going to be necessary in order to run this. So I think on the make file, we can do use checkpointer. I guess that proves my point that you need a checkpointer in order to resume something. So with any luck, this will now have everything. Cool. All right, so here was the first for loop. We're printing out the state. We stop. Here is the second for loop. We run approve post again, but the stuff before it, before that interrupt, was like not executed, I guess. I'm just curious how they could. I'm not sure that that's true. That's going to be a problem. We might need to. This thing right here might need to be in its own task. Yeah, I think so. Because think about it. If I okay, it ran approve post again, and we're saying like this is when we would have done the notification. So it did try and run the whole node. So any side effects, which like a post, would have run again. There's nothing would have stopped this, and then it picked up from here. Okay, that's curious. So you have to really think of your interrupt nodes as they should just be about interrupting, because if you have anything else in there, it's not going to work the way you want it to. So let's go ahead and fix that. All right. We'll do send approval notification. Takes a state, type state, and send the possible posts to notify sh for approval. We'll return. It's not going to be any state here, but we're going to move this post up to here. Okay, and then we need to add to our sequence send approve. Why is this not auto-filling? That's weird. Okay. And we'll put in right here, send approval notification. Okay, so now we should get just the behavior we're looking for. So I'm trying to understand. Can we listen to the request until it is? Oh. No, because it's like, well, maybe I'm not understanding your question. So I'm going to give you my interpretation of your question, and if it's something else, let me know. When we send the request to notify, we're sort of like firing a message and saying, forgetting about it. We're just saying like, hey, put this in a queue that you're going to keep track of, notify service. And if anybody is paying attention to that queue topic, then tell them. So we've decoupled the sender of the notification from the receiver of the notification. It's not like we're sending and then blocking and waiting for somebody to answer, because the way that system is designed is you could have multiple subscribers to a topic. So it's like you wouldn't want it to come back for the first person who responds, right? It's like it's a kind of a way of doing broadcast of a bunch of information all at once. If that's not the question you're asking, I'm happy to try and take a crack at what you really meant. But yeah, that's why we can't just sit around and wait for it. There's part of me that would love to have like have it be so simple of just be stupid and wait in a busy loop. But I don't think that's going to work, unfortunately. Okay. Does interrupt have to be anything? It doesn't, but there has to be a value. So there's a positional argument. So we could literally do, whoops, not that. We could do none, and that would be fine. Because it's not going to do anything with it, probably. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I feel decent about this. Let's clean some of this stuff up. Now I have a much better understanding of what's coming out of here. State's not, it's definitely not the right variable name. It is, I guess we could call it an update because we're doing the updates option. That's fine. And then delete all this trash and put that on a one-liner. Nope, that one's not going to go. Okay. The other way we could handle this is our state. Our input to this thing doesn't matter. We're not actually using messages right now. And frankly, when this thing gets invoked, I don't want to give it a message. I'm not starting off with a message that way. It's a workflow that doesn't require human input to start. So I think maybe what I can do is bring in my state like this and just say state, I think. Whoops. No, type def. It's a type dict. It's not actually invocable like a class. Okay. So can I do this and just tell it as a state? Cannot be assigned to a parameter. Okay. Oh no, I can't. It doesn't like that. Type dict cannot be assigned to parameter input. Why not? Because you're saying you need to be a state. Okay. That's a compiled, okay. So, but if I did, all right, let's try this. If I said state was a state and then did it this way, I'm trying to think of like, can I make the type ints happy? Apparently not. Like I can't, what the heck? Dict any is not assignable. So do I have to do messages? Probably, because it's type dict. Messages with no messages. There we go. What if I did that here? Can I do messages with no messages? I can. All right, so I don't need that. I do need the messages key, apparently, just to have something there. And then Why is the config angry? Argument of type dict. Okay, I need to just say it's a runnable config. Will that work? Hey, no weird errors. Neat. Sometimes type indentation's annoying. So the triggering function should be at the receiver. I guess I'm sorry, I'm still not quite following, so not quite sure what to say there. All right, so with this simplified, this will probably condense. All right, now we're getting somewhere close enough. So let's take this content. Let's make sure I'm not committing anything stupid. Oh, that looks good. And update the workflow. This battery might be dying. Periodically it's missing some keys. I bought this. This is a what is this? A Microsoft Sculpt, something like that. And it's been a decent keyboard, and I got, it served me fairly well. But when I bought it, I thought it was a wired keyboard because here I am. I don't need to move with this anywhere. But it wasn't a wired keyboard. But thankfully, the battery has been fine for like multiple years. It's not been a big deal. I would have been pretty annoyed if it was like every few months I had to change it. Okay, so now it's time to make sure that this strategy can work, because what I need to do is send to notify, but it also has to, the data has to come back. So the thread ID has to come back. Well, is that true? If I'm staying in this process, like let's say I've got that makefile target, right? And it's running uv run python blah 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 run. And that is a cron job that runs start to finish, just like from top to bottom of this file. If that's the universe I'm in, and I'm keeping it super simple, as long as I put a topic that my notification can respond to, it kind of acts as like, okay, I listened to the right topic and I got a response back to it, so it must be about this particular thread, and it just will finish there. So that's actually a pretty powerful option that will avoid some state. Because otherwise I'd have to, like, I think send the thread ID to notify, which maybe you can. Finding actions, blah, blah, blah. Because there's a certain amount of data that can go in here. Let's read on some of these things. Public topics. Nope. You can see there's a limit on the length of these messages. There's a bunch of limits, actually. Oh. Subscribing, the other half. I've read up on all the publishing stuff. So I think we need to, if we're gonna try to do this, then we would need to set up some subscription stuff. And how would I do that? Do I want to do that with a workflow, or I could set up like a little subscriber and have another little command line script and just test that out. Once I got that working, then integrate that into this workflow so that we're not trying to do two things at once. Not that it really matters, because we'll just be staring at a bunch of extra prints that come out. Let's figure this out though. Let's check out the options we've got from your phone. So that's the thing that I've got here, the how you get notifications on there. I don't really need to follow that, but that's how I'm going to have that side. We're not going to use a web app. We're not going to. What is this desktop version? I don't think that's what we want. Oh yeah, we don't need this. We want to actually like use this. We don't want the CLI, I'm pretty sure. You can subscribe to topics via the Netlify CLI. Oh wow, okay. Wait. Command, cool. Not what I want, but that's cool to know it's there. And subscribe via API. You can consume the subscription API either as a simple HTTP stream or via a WebSocket. Oh, wow. Okay. That's cool. I don't know how this works with like a, how do you do this with like a request library? What are they going to do? Oh, wow. That's freaking amazing. How do we know? Dang, okay. So we're going to have to figure out a condition where we break. That's so cool though. I really like that. It's very simple. Because I was thinking like we'd have to set up a web server and set up some kind of little endpoint, or I don't know what I was thinking. I like this. Definitely doesn't have a timeout, or it does maybe. Yeah. We could use a timeout. So, like I said, the timeout flow is like don't proceed, right? We could do a timeout, and oh, this get really nice. So let's cool. I'm digging it. It's awesome. Let's add requests. UV add requests. Okay. Yep. So let's do that. Add requests. And then yeah. We'll go back to our run, because I think it's going to be so easy that, yeah, it'll be really obvious. So we want to do, so this is like your topic. You just say /JSON. I cannot believe like how easy that is. So we'll do import requests. And then we would do response is requests get https:// notify sh mbl test receiver. I don't know that matters. JSON, and say stream equal true. And then to handle our timeout case, for the moment, we'll just put timeout equal like 10 and let it fail. All right, so what should happen here is we won't get to the other half of this because we'll get a timeout exception. So this is going to block here, waiting for this to happen. It's never going to come in because I'm not going to have it going on for 10 seconds. So let's try it. So, oh my, okay. Not what I was expecting. Oh, you know what we probably have to do? Because it's streaming, I bet you don't get the streaming until you start iterating over it. That's my guess. For line in response iter lines print line. I don't know. Is that what it said? If line. Okay, I don't care. There we go. So it's sitting there. Should get an exception at this point because it's blocking. Yeah, there we go. Read timed out. Exceptions, connection error. Great. So we can wrap all this with just a try and say try accept requests error. Where do they keep their errors? I thought it was request exception class. If I was good, I'd probably check for a real timeout, but I'm not going to. Like if it fails, it fails. Fine. And then we could say print no post selected and OS exit. Is it not OS exit? Sys? System exit. Wow. Been a while since I've made some command line utilities, I guess. Okay. So now we'll have this flow where it will just like wait for a line. And after we test this out, I'm expecting, rather than getting a nasty error, we will sit here, wait. We won't see the other half of the workflow. So that'll never run. Probably not cool that we're leaving like unfinished workflows. Maybe that's fine. So no post selected, that's how that would end. And then if we did get a response, and it was a response that I wanted, which we still need to play around with, then we'd eventually break out of this for loop, and then we would allow the command to resume with whatever the response was, right? So the idea would be we put in the parsing logic here to actually extract the selected value. Okay, so let's test this out by doing a new line. Let's change this to, I don't know, let's give ourselves plenty of time. So let's let that run. And so it's waiting for us on MBL test receiver. Oh, but it's going to keep streaming because there's no condition for it to stop, right? So it'll probably just print out whatever that line is and then go to the next thing. And that line's going to be a binary blob of some kind. But we can try it. So let's bring up our curl command and bring up the test receiver. Right? Test receiver. Okay. So cool. We are now, there was the data. Well, there's a keep alive. Okay. So we're going to have some other events. we want to look for, okay, what we want to pay attention for apparently is the event message. We need to, it's some binary bytes. Binary bytes, come on, Matt. It's some bytes. We need to decode that into JSON and extract out the message and see what the actual message data was. Okay, cool. And then, so that'll be like the break of our loop. So let's go to our code here. Actually, we can stop this. Let's go over here, and here, and once I'm done with this, I can clean it up and put in some functions if I care. I'm not sure I care. Maybe I would someday in the future, but today I don't. And we want to say, we know these are bytes. So we're going to need, and we know this is going to be JSON. So let's start by bringing in the JSON module. And then so data is going to be equal to JSON loads line. Line is binary though, so we need to decode it because it will be just a bunch of bytes. And then we can print the data. I think that'll work. Okay. Doesn't seem like much of a difference, but now it's printing out a dictionary, which is good. So let's stop there. And then we want to look for if event in data, and if we know that, then we can let's do that simple. There's a simpler way to do this. So if data get event, if it doesn't have something, we will just do an empty string equals message. Then print that data. That's like the only data we care about. So now we're not going to see the open messages. We're not going to see the keep alive. None of that stuff. We'll only see something when we actually do the curl or anything hits that. Okay, cool. And before anybody decides to, thankfully I've got a delay here. If anybody's like trying to send me nasty grams, they won't get to the stream in time. Okay. So what's the other data that was in that? It actually had, I don't care about the topic, I care about the message itself. So we would then, it should have a message, but we should maybe guard a little bit. So we could say print data get message. Otherwise, we'll print missing message, like that. And we want to break at that point. So now we'll get our whole flow. We're waiting. We're going to get a message. We will break. We will start. We'll resume. Awesome. So we have successfully integrated with Notify, not with a phone yet, not done like the setting of the right topics, but we've proved out that you can integrate with Notify and then listen for the response and resume a workflow. So maybe the next thing that we can do, what is next actually? Well, first of all, let's figure out the right timeout before I commit this code. I'm about to commit this. How long do I want to wait? Probably 30 minutes. So we'll say timeout is equal to, these are in seconds. So that's 30 times 60, right? That'll be our timeout. If I haven't responded in half an hour, just don't do anything. The thing that we're gonna have to coordinate, okay, there's a little bit of coordination here. If I want to pick, all right, I'm gonna cheat. We'll use a thread ID for multiple purposes. We can use the thread ID for, we'll say thread ID is for the workflow and the reply topic. Okay. Whoops. So this will serve two purposes, and it allows my workflow to expect, it's almost like an authentication in a way. If like you know, like there are plenty of services where unless you know the URL, it's a really hard thing to like guess because they're random IDs. So if we take this and we go and say, I'm only going to listen at thread ID. We could even namespace it a little bit further. We could say, I don't know, MBL xpost. I don't know. I don't know that I want to do that because that's going to be information that I have to embed later, which will make sense. Okay, we'll keep it at thread ID for now. Now that we've done that, when we do the actions part of this, we will have enough information to build an action based off that thread ID, such that when I end up clicking a button here, it will send it to the right topic for that listener, and then I can use that. Now, I think this should, there's no universe in my mind where I get a notification. So here's a potential flow that could happen that somebody who's really paranoid could think about and make atomic, but it would not be necessary in my mind, where the notification's going out here, right? And then the interrupt happens, and then that pauses this workflow, and then all this stuff starts up, right? There is some insane universe where this step over here can happen, and I get a notification, and I'm Johnny on the spot, and I hit 1, and somehow like send to the topic before this call has happened. I don't think that's physically possible, frankly. Like the amount of time between here and like the human time and going over a network to actually have me respond before this gets set up is really improbable. Even if I'm wrong and there is some universe where I could have somehow notified before this got set up, then the impact would be that that post would be missed, right? Because what would happen is this would be listening late. These are the way these topics works. They don't have memory. They're just like, you better be listening when it gets sent out. If you're not listening, too bad. There's no like backlog of these. So we would just hit the timeout and it would say no posts. So that's okay. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's try it out. Let's see if we can configure junk. I had like a payload that it was crafted right in the right shape, which had actions, and I don't know that I have that ready. Well, okay, maybe this will be like the last. So I would love to like finish off the human in the loop part of this workflow, and maybe that's like the last 20 minutes of this. So let's call this piece done, and say complete notify sh listener. Well, mostly complete. We haven't parsed the data on the other side, but we don't know what data we're exactly getting yet. So here's where we start introducing stuff that makes this so that every time I call it, it's going to actually send notifications and stuff. That could get annoying. I guess I could make it configurable about what topics are going out there. So then testing this and just blasting a topic that is random. Kind of feel bad doing that, but that's okay. It's maybe not so bad. But let's go back to the message sending section and look at this publish as JSON stuff. Oh, cool. Look at all this. They've already got that configured so nicely. So it's a post. We don't even need to do JSON dumps because apparently the author does not know about the JSON key that's available to requests. So the way this works is when we did the curl command earlier, we were specifying the topic that we knew. But when you want to post as JSON and have a bunch more control, you just post to the root, and the topic is part of the payload. So that's what's happening. So let's come down here and say we're going to fake some data. So let's copy all that's here to start. Seems like a reasonable start. Put that right here. I want to use not this. I want to say JSON. And then we can get rid of all this part. And then save that. Requests was already pulled in, apparently. Why? Where else did I use that? Ah, okay. On the type. So we're going to do the post. We're going to pick a topic. For the purpose of this testing, and I would appreciate y'all not sending me a bunch of spam. I'm going to use the testing topic that I've been using on my phone. I'll set that for later so that I don't get a bunch of messages if people are going to mess around. So we'll change the title to possible posts. Okay. And then we want to do, I don't care about priority or tags or an attachment or a file name, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to click. I want to be able to say, here's the content, that'll be in the message. Here's the title to say what your notification will be. And then we'll put in some actions here. And one of the actions will be posting with HTTP. So this will read 1. I'm just going to set up 1 for now. Yeah. And I'm going to literally call it 1 just so it's an easier target. If I just use the number 1, well, let's make this make more sense first. So here I'm going to say 1 is first post. And then we would do like new lines. I don't think they actually show up in the notifications properly, but second option, and then a couple new lines. And so what I want you to imagine here is the generate post step from above will have crafted the 3 different posts, and we just jam them together in a single message, and then put the slap on the title, and then there will be effectively we'll do 3 actions here, because that's the maximum allowed amount, like that. And we'll say 1, literally 1, the word 2, and the word 3, just to give easy sized targets. And then we need to go, what we need to go do is look at the actions, is because these are actually not going to be, the view action is when you get it on, like actually, oh, okay, I've got a little sample. I don't know if you can see it. So there's, I did a little test of this with fake data, and I've got buttons 1, 2, and 3 written there. Those don't go anywhere right now, but, or if they do, I don't remember where I sent them. Maybe my own personal website or something like that. But if you use this view option, it's literally like telling your client, open a web browser at that URL. But if you want to do an HTTP option, you can say, you can specify that kind of action, which is what we'll do here. So we'll specify the HTTP action. And then what we have to get right is, what is the URL for that action? And so it's going to be a get. You can do a get send message with this. Send HTTP request. Yeah, there's a way to do this back to notify, which I'll find that in a second. The default. Oh, the default is post. Okay. But then how do you put the data in? Hold on. You can add buttons. Great. We want HTTP button. Great. Sends an HTTP request when the action button is tapped. You can trigger REST stuff. By default, this is a post request, though this can be changed with the method parameter. Only required parameter is URL. Headers can be passed along using the headers. I don't want to pass along headers. I want to put some actual data in there. Okay. But before I do that, hold on. Before we do this, let's comment all this stuff out. We'll come back to us in a minute. Don't want to make that request yet. What I want to do, because I need to get the thread ID. The thread ID I said is like right here, but notice within this node, we just have the state. We don't have the thread ID. But what you can do with these nodes is you can ask for, it will like inject, nope, that's not it. And that's not it either. It will, when desired, inject the extra information that you want. So if we go to the Graph API and we go to the overview, these nodes can have the following arguments. So if we inject the runnable config, that matches up with this thing, the config. So we can go into we can put the config into here, or we should be able to say config is runnable config. At that point, we should be able to go to, I'm just going to pull out the data that I really expect to be there and let it blow up if it's not there, because this would be a coding failure. So I want to be able to print config configurable and print the thread ID. So this is the information that we're going to use as our topic, or our, not in our topic directly, in our action, sorry. But we got to make that work first. So yeah, let's try it out, see if the workflow, wait, oh, hold on. Now we gotta, I want to get past this thing. Oh no, it's fine. We'll just let it go because this is before. Okay, there's the thread ID, presumably. Actually, I guess I didn't print the thread ID, but the fact that it got here tells me that's the thread ID. Let's print the thread ID at the start. And try it again. So thread ID 96, blah, 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 blah. Here's the same thing. So we've got the thread ID properly. So we know if we put the thread ID in these actions and we send that to this thing, and this other side is waiting for that same thread ID, then we should be in good shape. So now let's go ahead and, just for the sake of something easier, let's pull the thread ID out locally so I don't have to reference that whole thing again, because we're going to reference it multiple times using an F string. So we want to do take this stuff, and we're going to do a publish to notify sh at the thread ID. Okay, this has got to be an F string, and we want to do that for all three of these. Okay, but we're not done yet. We need to actually like signal the data, right? We haven't said which one we want. So I effectively want, I think the way I can do this is with a get. I think you can send with a get. Publish via get. In addition to using put post, you can also send to topics via simple get request. This makes it easy to use notify topic as a webhook, or if your client has limited blah, blah, blah. So we need to say add a custom message. So we say the topic, and then we say publish, I guess. And then we provide what we want, message. So it's going to look like publish, message, and this will be 1. Okay, this is where this is like me being super lazy. And 2 and 3. Okay. And then I think when we come down to the action stuff, I think we need to put in that our method is going to be a get. So we need to add method here of get. Whoops. Get. 2, 3. What are you complaining about? Configurable is not a required key. All right. I'm going to let it complain about that for now. I don't care. So to finish this off, I need this to show up to my phone now. So now I'm going to plop in my temporary testing topic. This is not the topic that I would use in the final version of this because I don't want random people sending me crap on my phone. So this is what I'm going to test with. Did we plug in everything that we needed? We've got it listening for the thread ID that matches up with this, I think. And if we did this right, this should do a publish to that topic. The message data should be one of those numbers, and so we should see. We'll do an extra print here. Otherwise, we'll just get like a 1, 2, or 3, I think. Message was do that. Close that off. Okay. Nose is itching again. Okay, it got through that. Buzz goes my phone, so I was definitely listening to the right topic. Oh, this is super cool. The new lines worked. So I don't know how well you can see that, but there's 1, 2, and 3 listed. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to press 1. Whoa. That was so fast and so cool. So we've got message was 1. Response was 1. Dang, that was awesome. I want to do it one more time. I want to actually see the whole data payload because we were just printing out the message, and I'd like to see if there's anything like in there that's going to be weird on parsing that I wasn't anticipating. Yeah. So let's just print them all. Man, I'm thrilled that this worked though. I like that it's nice when the thought in your head comes together is like, oh, it did what I wanted it to do. So neat. All right, let's try it again. Okay. And I guess I'll have to delete this topic later right after this video, otherwise there's totally going to be randos that are sending me stuff. All right, I got it again. This time I'm going to hit 2. And we got open. It's printing out all of them. And here's the actual message. Or here's the event type. It was message. And the message was literally the number 2. That's because what I wired together as the message data was this. So when it comes time to post, I'll have to make sure, like I'm going to create some posts and probably stuff them here, like post options or something like this, which will be a list of stir. Yeah. And then generate posts will stuff them into that list. Send approval notification, we'll pull them out and then actually format the message. We know all the approval mechanics. When we go to do the approval, we'll get to the response. And we will put, I guess I could do this in multiple, but whatever. We'll put the response onto some message state as well, and it will say like selected post. And then when we do the publishing, we'll take the selected post and the possible posts, pull that out, and send it to the API. So that's going to be the flow. That, though, I think will end where I'm going to end tonight. Let me delete before I forget. I swear I'm going to get, somebody's going to be like cute and want me to have some message that I don't want. So don't bother trying to send to MBL testing. I'm not listening to it anymore. Okay. But that was fun. That did what we wanted. I'm going to make this probably configurable in the future so that if I'm ever streaming on this again, I don't have to disclose what topic I'm sending it to. You can just trust that it will go to my phone, and we can talk through that. Let's take a look quickly at what we've got. We're doing some printing out. That's okay. And this project is like, you can see I'm not testing anything. It's just a personal workflow. It's one of those kind of things that I don't expect this to break. And even if it did break, it's not really worth me writing a bunch of tests for it because I would notice. Like if I'm going to start running this every day and it stops and I don't get a notification someday, I'll be like, where's my notification? So there's some things in life that just aren't worth getting very rigorous about in terms of testing. But just looking back at this, we've got the post options that we're not taking care of yet. And we've added the actual HTTP post. I love that this technique worked. You could send to a topic, you can use the get option and have like using 2 topics, you're like sending a message this way and replying on that other channel, and that just worked swimmingly. That was cool. So that's how that's going to go. Oh, look at the time. I nailed it tonight. All right, so I'm going to stop here. We'll say send options to notify. Hopefully that was fun. It was fun for me. Hopefully y'all learned something about LangGraph. We did. Oh, I don't know what this would be like if I tried to run back through LangGraph dev. I think it should work the same way. It has a different check pointer. But yeah, we saw a LangGraph graph that ran, didn't do much. The nodes themselves didn't have a lot of logic. That's fine. But importantly, we introduced human in the loop. And that's like the thing that people want in so many of these agentic flows. People want to insert themselves, do approvals, do things, and now you've seen exactly how it works. In LangGraph, you create an interrupt, and that essentially stops the workflow. And the reason that that's okay is because you had a thread ID and you had a check pointer that saved the state. Then on the other side of it, when you do whatever you're going to do, which in my case was go to notify and do a request and response pattern basically, then you can take the response and then resume that, stuff it back into LangGraph, and because you have the thread identifier still, like LangGraph just pulls out the checkpoint and just picks up right where you left off. The biggest surprise for me this evening was that the entire interrupt node was run again. So don't do other crap in there. Like don't send out double notifications, which is what I would have done. So that's what's happening there. If you have been watching me on the stream in the past, you'll recognize that I've been not streaming very much lately. I just haven't been feeling it, to be candid. But I'm finding fun topics like this, and if I find a good session that will be like I want to make some progress and want to show off something that I'm doing, then I'll do it. And I clearly made progress tonight here, so who knows? Maybe you'll see me next week. Maybe not. At some point, I will try streaming again. But thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Take care.